Hello and welcome to this week's episode of Automate It, live streaming to you from the past from Polymath Robotics Global Northern California headquarters in San Francisco. I, of course, am CEO of Polymath Robotics and one of your co-hosts here at Automate It, Stefan Ilia. And sitting across from me is a man whose shirt declares himself as a, and I quote, total Ross bag. And who are you, Mr. Ross bag?
So right as we were talking about this, we were talking about how your state of dress is decreasing over your time. I am that influence of wearing t-shirts and just not, being very presentable.
And I'm just wearing a poorly fitting sweater that I bought from Target. So I'm right there with you, buddy. Welcome again to Automate It. This is our weekly podcast where we talk about robots, how to build them, and dive into a fair amount of nitty-gritty. We have two segments on our lovely show. The first is where we play a game where we spitball together a robot. And the second is where we talk about a topic. And Ilia, what are we going to talk about this week?
This week, we're talking about the death of Everyday Robotics, company out of Google.
AKA No Day Robotics these days.
Oh, bad pun. Sadness. I see him rubbing off on you negatively in other ways too.
Russia, the Ruski mirror.
But yeah, so Everyday Robotics was a Google company working on robots for the house and the office.
Easy places to build robots, as we've spitballed together before. So again, we're going to start off with our game. And this game, I like to say, is a simulation of what it's like to start a robotics company, where you have one person who has a strong bias towards a particular technology to use or not use, and another person who has a bias towards, some industry, some place, some vertical to make a business out of it. Ilia, what's the business or the environment that we're gonna have our technology in these days?
All right, so I'm going to pick a card here at random, and it is home use. Look at that.
Home use.
All right, what technology are we going to pick?
Well, the first one I have here is robot arm. And I have to say, I was talking to some friends earlier about how robot arms are one of my weaker areas, especially because we recently got asked if we could just incidentally solve a open general AI robotic arm problem on the side on top of our autonomy stack. Let's do robot arms in the house.
Totally unrelated to what Everyday Robots is trying to do.
So what are some good use cases? So I actually, things like unloading the dishwasher, things like putting the laundry away, things like loading the fridge. Those are all kind of standard boilerplate, but I have to say I'm lazy with all of them.
Yeah. So that's the first thing with the robot arm you want to do is, what is our payload capacity that we need to handle? I just pick a number and we'll work from there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess like the challenge here is the heavier it is, the more unwieldy the arm.
Yeah.
And like, I would say we shouldn't do folding laundry because that's not even going to be fun to spitball, because there's been like 80,000 companies who have said, I want my shirts folded, but I don't want to hire a housekeeper. So instead I'll buy a $500,000 robot.
If you want to see a great video, there's still videos on YouTube of the PR2 out of Willow Garage folding towels. And the
first, great, right?
Yeah, the first iteration would pick up a towel and then would scan it while rotating it in front of itself, and then find a corner, grab that corner, do the same operation again, find the other corner, and eventually fold it. And it was blazing fast at about 45 minutes per towel.
I would say that is faster than I put my laundry away. So let's not do towel folding. I guess let's say the dishwasher, that feels like a knowable problem, because, the dishes, theoretically, 90% of your 90% of your dishwashing dishes by volume are the same dishes over and over. There's a handful of cabinets that you need to go to.
Yeah. And the dishes are rigid bodies.
Yep.
That helps a lot.
Sometimes
they're always the same shape.
Tupperware, I guess Tupperware is rigid enough.
Oh, rigid enough.
Yep.
Right. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect.
Now, the challenge, though, is like, glasses, for example, are made of glass. A little known fact for those of you following along at home. And if you squeeze them too long, people don't appreciate broken glass on the floor of their kitchen.
Well, it's not even the squeezing problem. The problem is actually detecting them in the first place. Really transparent, shiny glass that just came out of a dishwasher is really clear.
So what you could do is you could spray a powder on them to make them more detectable.
That'll make you super likable. Just to make it better appearances, we'll make it an IR only powder that's transparent optically.
Yeah.
But it's this like mystery science powder that it just sprays all over your food.
It gets your dishes away, but it's highly toxic.
Super carcinogenic.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Yeah.
Well,
I actually feel like glasses are the easiest part of the dishes to put away.
No, I don't know. I disagree. I think just the perception problem alone.
No. Sorry. As a lazy human.
Oh,
I find that to be like
the easy part.
If I'm disappointing my wife by only putting away one part of the dishwasher, it's the glasses. It's like, oh, I had time for the glasses, honey, while having a cup of water, and then I had to go. So good luck with everything else.
So you're saying is we're going to spend a crazy amount of money in R&D on a project that almost sort of solves a minor problem.
Yeah.
Not even entirely.
Yeah, we're in robotics.
Yeah, sounds like robotics. That's exactly what I was going to say. Sounds like the standard robot.
So I think we could do plates. Silverware might be hard because like even my silverware is fairly inconsistent. I've like accumulated silverware through the years that are all like kind of different sizes and not uniform.
I mean, I think the trick you could do there is usually there's a silverware caddy.
Yep.
So you pick up the caddy, you dump it out onto something. Not on the floor, but like on a reasonably clean surface.
Yep.
And then that way you separate out
I
that
can
pile.
do one better. I just got a new dishwasher because I'm living the high life. I have a special silverware tray.
So for reference, high life in startup land is we can actually pay ourselves a salary.
Yeah.
It's quite impressive.
And I have a dishwasher.
Yeah.
And I have this tray that comes out and it's all single stack, single level, laid out perpendicular, parallel to the floor.
Yeah.
And like you could just basically go suction up like a knife at a time, a fork at a time.
Let me guess, it's a Bosch.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah. So you can have a grasping problem there. I think actually, kind of side note, I heard this great soundbite, which I wish I'd come up with. I don't remember who did, but somebody who was reviewing the Tesla robot. And he said, I knew that the Tesla robot was not a real effort when I noticed that the fingertips were hard metal. and it doesn't make sense until you really think about it. Like try to pick up an object with a pair of tongs or a pair of spoons.
Yep.
It's practically impossible for any hard object. So you want your gripper to be soft so that you can squeeze a little harder and it just grabs the thing. That's why your fingertips are soft and sort of like...
Mine are a little bony.
Yeah, even that though. Probably not steel. So if you have kind of a squishy gripper, there's a cool kind of gripper called the jamming gripper. Have you ever seen these kind of things?
No.
Fun weekend project if you want to do it.
Quick weekend project.
No, seriously. Actually really easy. You take a balloon, you take coffee grounds, and you take an empty syringe and some surgical tubing.
And it's San Francisco, so there are syringes lying around.
Not those kind of syringes. The arts and crafts syringes.
Arts and crafts syringes? What's your daughter into?
Shh, don't ask those questions. So what you do is you fill the balloon with grounds, and you have the syringe, and you just pull out the air out of the balloon with that surgical tubing, and the grounds will compress.
Okay.
And the cool thing is if there's air in the balloon, you can squish against an object, pull out the air, and the balloon will deform and jam around the object and pick it up.
Yeah.
And this kind of gripper can pick up pennies off a table.
Yeah.
It can pick up cards. It can pick up practically anything. The only problem with the jamming grippers is they tend to be fragile.
Yeah.
But that kind of gripper is perfect
for silverware.
Perfect for silverware. Perfect for dishes. Perfect for glasses.
Like if you're picking up, say, we have like cheapo steak knives that we sometimes put laid up in the dishwasher. Not going to do so good with this gripper.
Exactly. That's again fragile rubber surface.
So realistically, to unload the dishwasher, we're going to need multiple implements for the different types of objects. Like basically, we're going to have to run things through some visual tool to say sharp, not sharp. We picked out these quote unquote aesthetically pleasing plates that for our wedding registry that weigh about 85 pounds each and are about a centimeter tall for reasons that I have yet to determine. So
mostly lead.
Mostly lead. So we probably need a normal robotic gripper for those plates specifically.
Yeah.
Or I'd have to buy new plates, and that's just, not a sacrifice I'm willing to make for robots. So we probably need a tool that has multiple grippers that can go and grab things.
Or, I put forward the jamming gripper, but you're right. I think like a classic soft gripper, it's still mechanically driven, but just covered in a soft material, would probably do the right job.
So a question that I have, I for one don't like the clanging of dishes noise that often happens when you're unloading the dishwasher, which makes me want to say like stack up all the plates and then put them in the cupboard. But of course, 10 plates are 10 times heavier than one plate.
I mean, I think getting your robot to not clang a dish is easier than for humans. Because if you know where it's trying to go, it could very easily do the motion control profile where it speeds there.
Yep.
And then the last centimeter, it moves at a complete snail's pace.
Okay.
And then it won't make a loud noise. That part's not too hard.
So how would we go about, given that people's kitchens are relatively unstructured, but not frequently changing environment outside of whether they have stuff on the counter or not?
Yep.
How do we go about figuring out where things should go?
Yeah, I mean,
so like
teach and repeat.
You've gotten your plate out.
Yeah, teach and repeat, I think, is the best way. Is you have a perception system like cameras and LiDAR. You tell the robot.
Yeah, but like
teaching.
I mean, if 30% of pixels changing messes up teach and repeat, sometimes there's going to be some stupid kids art on the fridge.
I don't mean.
Sometimes there's going to be pastries left out.
I don't mean teach and repeat in the sense of
visual
localization or visual. I mean literally, you take the robot gripper, you have it pick up a plate, and then you place that plate in the correct cupboard, and it knows from reference that cupboard contains this kind of plate.
Okay. And you have to do that in such a way because like not all the plates will go in the same spot because the next plate will go about a centimeter above the first plate.
Right, exactly. And not everybody's a programmer, so you don't want to force people to learn machine code just to teach a robot how to put away dishes. You just show it. You literally say,
let's talk some product details here.
All right.
What do you think a robot, and like we probably need, it either needs to be mobile around the kitchen.
Definitely does.
Okay. So definitely needs to be mobile around the kitchen. I'd say the tallest cabinets are probably 7 feet off the floor, 6 feet off, something like 7 feet off the floor. Sounds safe. We need to be able to extend, let's say, a pound at a time, 7 feet off the floor, and maybe like 3 feet away from the driving surface.
Yeah.
What do you think that arm's going to cost us?
Well, so you can cheat, right?
Yep.
If you look at the way that a lot of these robots, including the Peer 2 and more modern efforts in home robots, they'll actually have the spine extend the robot upwards.
Yep.
So the arm only ever has a 3 feet of grip or reach.
Yeah,
but the whole arm assembly.
You could do, actually, screw that. What you could do is you make the person have a placemat on their countertop, where like this is the plate section, and this is the cup section, and this is the bowl section, and then like the robot gets it out of the dishwasher, and then it's in the easy consolidated pile to go put in the cabinet.
So solving half the problem again,
but way easier.
All right, so I think we got to name this thing.
Well, let's figure out the price of this thing. So what's the robot arm and sensing and the driving around going to cost us?
I mean, the sensing suite would probably be around $5-6K if I had to guess.
Okay.
Mobile base is another 10-ish on the cheap end.
Yeah.
And the arm is probably another 20 to 30.
Okay.
For the kind of dexterity.
So we're looking at
including the gripper.
So we're looking at about $60,000 or so bill of materials.
Yeah.
Call it $180,000 so that you have a 70% margin before, marketing, sales,
shipping.
Yeah, shipping's going to be non-trivial. $180,000 capital expense that will probably break down every 3 years.
Yeah, every 3 years. That's glorious. What about my Roomba doesn't even perform reliably every week.
And as a fun fact, when I lived in Singapore, I could have a live-in maid who would do all this for me for $500 US a month, and she'd cook dinner. So this robot's going to be great. What's it called?
It's called The General Disappointment of Robots Solidified into One Product.
3,000.
3,000.
Ilia, the other day we saw news that Everyday Robots, a massive engineering and robotics effort within Google, who was trying to build robots to do everyday tasks like put your dishes away, or
collect trash off of the cafeteria that they had, that sort of stuff.
Or squeegee a table, which was a lot of gifs about the table squeegeeing.
Yep.
That they are no more. They are kaput. There are 200 plus engineers who have worked on that, and their code base that has been built over the last 15 plus years is going to be shelved. Some of the engineers will be moving on to other things within the Google Alphabet family, and some of them are probably listening to this podcast thinking, what can I do with my life after this? And why am I listening to this podcast?
The answer is come work with Polymath Robotics. But no, I mean, if you really think about the numbers, and you're more of the numbers guy, but paying 200 engineers for a decade-ish, Google salaries and Google benefits is an enormous amount of money. I mean, we're talking about more than $1 billion for sure.
Oh yeah,
like
I'd say probably in the $2 to $5 billion range.
Right, so you're talking about a multi-billion-dollar effort.
Yeah,
and Google's not going to license this technology. I'd be very surprised.
Yep,
they're not going to sell it. I'd also be very surprised. So they've just
it's going to get some code rot.
It's a lot of code rot, right? Because it's in-house built, probably. It's probably not using standards. Might, but not a lot, right? Google likes to use their own tooling for their own stuff, and it makes it a little hard to integrate with. So Google essentially paid a person to dig a hole the size of a building, bury $2 billion in it, and then set it on fire over the last 10 years. That's the effect.
Set the money on fire or just the building?
Both.
Okay.
The building's probably
Can I dig into the building to get the money? Is this like this hard drive full of Bitcoin in a landfill situation?
It has long since evaporated. But, Google has the kind of money to spend on this stuff.
Yeah.
I forget what the number was, but like some insane percentage of Google people don't work on search.
Yeah.
And search brings in all the money.
Yep.
So, like 90+% of Googlers do not bring in money to the company.
Yeah. I mean, there's actually a weird problem when Google first IPO, they brought on a CFO who realized it was problematic that they were so profitable.
Yeah.
And Google that basically had a mandate of make less money so that you attract less regulatory and competitive attention.
Yeah, exactly. So, Google and other large companies, Amazon, Microsoft, you name it, all have these kind of other bets, divisions working on future tech. VR was popular for a number of years. Robotics has been popular for a number of years. You name it, right?
Yep.
Space,
Yep.
drones. Everybody has these kind of other bets divisions. Intel, for example, built an entire division in Israel. They acquired some companies. They made some of their own stuff doing perception for robots with their kind of Mobileye, more for the automotive space.
Yep.
But Intel released kind of a series of camera products for robotics and smart home stuff. What ends up happening in almost all these cases is that the parent company's main product is so much more profitable and so much more long-term and short-term useful that they eventually stop spending money on this.
Or in Alphabet's case, the meal ticket gets under a threat from possible competitors, and all the other bets get written off. The thing that I find very similar about this whole situation is kind of like when you're trying to recruit someone to work at a startup, and it's happened to me time and time again. I'm trying to recruit some engineer to join my team, and they have a competing offer from a Google, from a Facebook, from an Intel. And there's this line of thought that happens in all of these conversations of like, but it's just a safer job. It's my job will still be there. It's more predictable. And this thing seems fun, but there's no chance anything's going to change. I actually remember maybe a year and a half ago, we were trying to recruit someone who was working at Zoox who said, if Zoox failed, it would be a big deal. So Zoox is probably fine. And Zoox is exactly one of these other bets.
Yeah.
I think the thing about large tech companies or large companies in general, they only seem more solid because at whatever level you joined, you're abstracted enough away from the chaos. Because every organization from a 5-person startup to the U.S. Navy has a decent amount of chaos. It's just whether or not you get to see it.
Yeah. The secret here is even the exemplary, very data-driven organizations will still have, the pet project of some senior executive who just wants to do it for whatever reason. And then he changes jobs and there's no more champion for that project and that project disappears.
Yep.
And that happens a lot.
It's a thing I've heard about one of the companies selling robots to the military is they see something like 70% of churn in between projects, not because people are unhappy with their robots, but because like the wrong general gets reassigned. Yeah. And now there's no one to sign that next project along. And I mean, I think of this a lot with kind of in general, the idea of these projects that are patronized by a large company. They seem stable because you don't understand the political winds that make them happen.
That make them work. I mean, one interesting thing about the Intel RealSense cameras in particular is when they announced that they were downsizing it and they went back from like, let's say, call it 8 models to 2, some number around there. One of the leaders was saying, we are actually a profitable division. We are profitable. We're doing well. We're growing. People like our products. There's a lot of runway, but we are not profitable enough. Our margins are only X and they should be 1.5X. And hence they're shutting down 70% of the people that work on this project.
Yep.
How disheartening is that to you as an engineer who works just as hard as a big company as at a small company? Stuff gets killed because it's just not making as much money.
Yep.
That's insane.
Oh,
that's so disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, and even in a bigger sense than RealSense, some of the Google projects, it's we had to make product decisions that made the overall product 10 or 1,000 times harder to build, because if we only make $50 billion a year or $10 billion a year, that's not enough to be interesting.
Exactly.
We're only worth the investment if we can make $500 billion a year.
Yeah, and coming back to the everyday robots, I don't know, obviously, the details of why they made the decision they did now.
Yep.
It's probably a cost-saving thing.
Yep.
Might not be making, but realistically, home robots of the Jetsons kind, we're still even conservatively 50 years away, or aggressively, 50 years away. You really need a level of intelligence we're not able to produce, a level of sensors that we're not able to produce for reasonable costs, right?
Yeah.
Could you build a Jetson-like robot for $60,000? Probably today. Like, you could build a modern PR2 today for a quarter of the cost.
But what will it do?
Right. Not only what will it do, who could afford that? Right? Your market's going to be like 4 guys.
And frankly, those are 4 guys who all will also have an actual housekeeper doing all the tasks that are too hard for the robot.
Right. Because
the robot will be there to serve drinks at parties, not so much, wake the kids up and make sure they're showered so I can take an extra 30 minutes a nap.
Yeah. I mean, forget the intelligence part, the even just the actuators, the arms. You're talking brute mechanics and electrical wiring versus literal nanomachinery in human muscles, right? Like, we have a long way to go before we're even 4 orders of magnitude less efficient than an arm is, in terms of dexterity, in terms of reach, in terms of strength to weight ratio, in terms of power efficiency, you name it, right?
Yeah.
We are very far away from that.
I mean, so going back to everyday robots more kind of in particular, what sucks the most for me about this is some of the solutions they came up with seems rather clever.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love the fact that the robot itself is essentially a pylon. It has a single arm that can then rotate anywhere on the pylon to have a wider range of what that arm can do. They're moving their sensors around so they can see things at different angles. Like, it seems like they made a lot of really good engineering decisions.
Yeah.
Which makes it all the more frustrating that there wasn't great product thought.
Well, they were even using the honeycomb LiDAR sensor that Google developed, right? So they were sharing tech between divisions and that sort of stuff.
Like, it's hard to imagine a use case that would be worth, let's say on a recurring basis, $50,000 a year for.
Yeah.
Like, that you couldn't just like solve with like security cameras or people who are not paid a lot of money or what have you.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the problem. And so you're left with these weird edge cases, like dangerous environments or secured environments or, hostile environments in some other way, like a military application.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough to justify it. And so it sounds really cool. And I'm sure it's a good talent attractor. And on the off 1 in 10,000 chance that somebody cracks it and makes it work well, it's a good bet.
Yep.
But it's still a very long shot bet.
Yeah.
And there's, Google's feeling a lot more pressure in the current term from ChatGPT type efforts and those sort of things, which are much more core to its business model.
Yep.
And so it doesn't make sense to invest in this long shots when your core moneymaker is under threat.
Yep. And frankly, when people are making layoffs for the sake of looking as cool as their other friends in the CEO club.
Yeah.
So those two things put together of everyone else laid off 6%. Why don't you lay off 6%? Plus, I saw a headline about this competitor who might eat your lunch if they get better.
Yeah. I think we read the same article by like a study about, most of these layoffs right now are kind of copycat behavior more so than actual necessary. Yeah.
Aesthetic. Ruining people's lives aesthetically.
Yeah.
Which is another lovely thing about working in an incredibly large corporation where the chaos seems more remote. What do you think's next in the world of home robots? So, I mean, I think we've had an interesting 20 years of robotics where robots went from being impossibly hard 20 years ago to only really quite hard today. More people have seen robots do things in the last 10 years than probably more people in a city like San Francisco have seen robots do things in the last 10 years than probably 10x the population who had ever seen a robot do anything between 1950 and 2000. So I guess like if home robots seem like one of those particularly most interested in applications, or not even home robots, servant robots.
Yeah.
Seem like one of those archetypal applications, much like self-driving cars. What do you think's going to happen?
Yeah. I mean, do you want my realistic bet or do you want my sci-fi bet?
Let's do both.
All right. Realistically speaking, I think the challenge that robotics has faced is in a lot of ways it's come a little bit too late, where a lot of our appliances are robots in all but name today.
Well, and they don't move in a.
They don't move. Yeah, there's a whole debate we can have about that.
Yeah.
Let's skip that.
I've once heard the line that a robot's a robot until it's useful, at which point it becomes a machine.
Exactly. So like, your dishwasher is frankly more intelligent,
sensing and making decisions, and changing how it moves.
As is your washing machine, as is all of the appliances in your house, right? So if you were in a 1950s context or a 1920s context even more, and you had a machine that could scrub the clothing on the washboard and hang it up and do your dishes, that actually is a much better proposition than buying each of these appliances separately kind of thing, right? In that context.
Yep.
Today, I think we're too late.
I mean, I think part of what we've discovered along the way is that intelligence is cheap enough that you don't need it to freely move through space.
Yeah.
You can basically copy and paste intelligence into your washing machine and into your dryer and into your dishwasher and into your thermostat.
Exactly. And so I think the realistic bet is that robotics in the home is becoming more diffuse and is currently not very well interconnected.
Yeah.
And I think if you have better standards on communication so that
like Zigbee.
Like not even forget the actual hardware. I'm talking like I want my Samsung fridge to talk to my LG TV and not be stupid about it and not need to sign 12 service agreements and pay 5 different fees. And you have that sort of thing. So the only real space left for a robot is the tasks that haven't been well automated. Vacuuming is one of them, which is why the Roombas are so successful, right? Think of some other ones in the house that haven't been roboticized basically by their appliances. Away. Well, even that, people complain about the dishes. Honestly, do your dishes by hand for a week and you will never again complain about doing the dishes.
Well, I think I told you my solution for that, which is just have 2 dishwashers.
Oh, 2 dishwashers. Yeah, that's a classic one.
You solve the robot dishwasher problem by having 2, one of which is always dirty, and then you're always moving stuff from the clean one to the dirty one.
Here's the real question. Why do you have a washer and a dryer? Why doesn't you have one?
Because the machines that do both are sometimes okay and sometimes bad.
So there's a problem to fix.
Yeah.
Why do I have to come downstairs?
No, we need general AI.
No.
General AI.
Yeah, right. $60,000 robot to pick up clothing
when
from
Polymath makes it big, I'm going to have a all-in-one washer dryer in my closet, which I will use as my hamper.
There you go.
While my wife is very against 2 dishwashers, she's on board with the Stefan self-cleaning hamper.
So back to that note on executives having pet projects. Exhibit A on how weird robotics projects get started. But yeah, so the realistic bet is that we need intelligence to kind of tie these systems together, and we need to improve the efficiency and usability of our current systems. The sci-fi bet that I have is the piece that's missing from that tied together world is an embodiment of that intelligence in some way that you can talk to it like I'm talking to you right now across the table. So not like talk to my phone, not talk to a screen, not like I need some way that I can look and point to a person and be like, you robot of my house, this dishwasher needs to do X.
But using a tool like, say, hey, Google, go do blah, blah, blah for me, that would never work.
No.
You need a point.
It's not that it wouldn't work. It's awkward.
You're a very pointing person.
Well, I think humans are, right? I think humans are embodied.
Humans are pointy people.
Yes. Yeah. Humans are very pointy people. That goes on a t-shirt. No, but seriously, like having run Google and Alexa and whatever in my house for a long time, you get really tired of using the wake word, of telling it a very specific string of sentences to do X.
I mean, an idea that I loved that I think I've talked to you before, but maybe no one else, you didn't see the show. I think Star Trek Andromeda had the idea of a embodiment of the ship who was like a hologram who would walk around and be like, right now I'm 68 degrees and the washing machine is running. By the way, you should go move the load from the washer to dryer because you're too cheap to have an all-in-one washer dryer.
Right, exactly. That sort of thing. I think that's what Astro was trying to do without really realizing it, is kind of being an embodied intelligence. I think until we have a way to project data right into our eyes with smart contact lenses or glasses or whatever, we're going to need a thing.
Like the movie Don't Worry, Darling.
Sure.
Yep.
We will need a thing to refer to.
Yeah.
And I think the smart speakers are sort of there, but if you've used them for enough time, you'll feel the kind of awkwardness of using them.
I don't at all. I take very naturally to commanding a disembodied voice to solve problems for me.
So we use ours in our daughter's room to play lullabies. And the best feeling ever is when you tell it to play a lullaby, And most of the time it plays it and shuts up. But 5% of the time, specifically when Alice is cranky, when the song ends, it will immediately pipe up saying, "Do you want me to play another one?" And Alice pops completely awake.
Google Home doesn't do that to
Right?
me.
Like,
You gotta get better AI.
fantastic experience. So embodied intelligence that understands that a toddler's trying to sleep and maybe
Yeah.
it shouldn't blast at full volume.
So in other words, you need cameras all throughout your house to go with your smart
don't
speakers.
Need you don't need cameras. You can get by with other
It
stuff.
seems like cameras mounted in every corner of every room is better than is an easier thing to build.
So if you're an investor who's investing in sensor technology, millimeter wave. That's all I'm gonna say. That is the next future millimeter
Technology
wave
of
sensor.
the day.
Yeah, no, seriously. Millimeter wave sensors, that's the future for home occupancy stuff. Spend money in that.
All these folks on the breadlines from Everyday Robotics, what do you think they should do next?
Yeah.
Because I have opinions.
Yeah. I'm sure you do. What do you not have opinions on?
I've yet to find something, but I have opinion on it already.
Yeah, exactly. No, actually, it sucks, right? Not only Everyday Robotics, but a lot of robotics companies are getting hit by layoffs and by economic
struggling.
situation.
It's hard times in robot world.
It sucks. It does. Especially, there's a lot of creative people in very specific domains. They can't just easily switch domains, right?
Yep.
However, I think that this is going to be a great flowering of new startups targeting
me
very
too.
specific things.
Me too.
Right? Like, I'm actually super excited to see where this goes. I think there's going to be a lot of great companies.
And I think what's exciting about this is, more so than any industry outside of tech people, especially ones who have been as well paid as folks at Everyday Robotics probably were, as long as they don't have too much of a credit card problem, probably have a fairly decent safety net, probably have a fairly decent nest egg, and can start tooling around with some cool stuff.
Yeah.
Probably have some hardware that, happen to end up going home with them, and can probably start making some cool things. If the cool things that they're making need to move from point to point without hitting stuff, they should probably be building on top of Polymath rather than rebuilding all that not fun stuff once again. But in the meantime, there's a large number of open arm problems. There's a large number of problems that are frankly more sellable than, can you put my laundry away for me? And I think of things in greenhouses. I think in things of factories. I think in things in meal prep. I think of things in maintenance of remote equipment. There's stuff all across the board where if you can build a mobile robot with an arm that is, not terrible, you can make the world a better and more automated place.
And similar to the, for a long time, if you're doing computer vision or machine learning, you're building everything from scratch.
Yep.
And then there was OpenCV and then PyTorch and all these toolkits that have appeared. And similar to us, we use ROS as our foundation, but we build a lot of stuff. So if you are interested in solving home robot problems, for example, or whatever you guys are wanting to start as a new business, and you don't want to worry about configuring ROS to navigate properly or configuring NavStack 2, that's the piece where it can come in and be one more of these services where we just take care of that problem. Of course, you can solve it yourself. You're smart people. I have no doubt about it. But you're going to waste a lot of time.
You can also build your own operating system in your own programming language and be Temple OS 5.0. Which the world does need.
You can also build off of ROS for sure, but you're going to waste a lot of time doing it. And I think people are hungry to get their projects going and they don't have time to waste.
Yeah. Well, that being said, Elliot, what are we talking about next week?
I don't know, Stefan. What are we talking about next week? You tell me.
The same thing we talk about every night.
How robots will take over the
world. Well, thank you all so much for joining us. We will, sorry for missing last week, and we are excited to talk to you next week.
See you soon.